Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gurureva Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyadravitam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Jai Guru Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So last week we covered one of the most important sections in the book. So we had finished our negation of the 5 koshas. And the Shishya says, "Oh Guruji, after having negated the 5 koshas, there's nothing left. By what entity then is the self to be realized?" The Guru says, "Oh Vidwan, learned one, clever are you, or actually better translation, subtle are you in your capacity to discriminate. In a very subtle intellect, that is where self-realization takes place. Realize the self to be that by which the 5 koshas are known. It is never known as an object, yet it is not unknown. It's my very self. What is this ahamkriti, this ego sense? I have a direct experience, aham, the infinite. And then because of ignorance, I add stuff to that in my mind. The primary one, I think I'm my body. Or I think I'm the transmigrating soul, which is another word for the subtle body. The physical body, subtle body, all of these are jada, meaning they are inert. They have no sentience. They have life because they wiggle, like prana. But prana is inert. I illumine. The self is an eternal fact. Wendy and I have started on the 2nd chapter of Gaudapada's Karika, Mandukya Upanishad. We had the philosophical definition of reality, of real. That which is never subject to negation. So if it doesn't exist in the beginning and has an existence in the middle and then ceases to exist in the end, philosophically we say it is anitya. It is not real. It is not eternal. The glass, before it was made, had prior non-existence. The glass was made. Some point the glass will break, and then it will have subsequent non-existence. So, by our definition, anitya, not permanent, not real. But you, nitya, eternal, real. There is no time when you were not. And you will never cease to be. And you are a changeless reality. Achala, unchanged. Nirupam, without a form. Achintyam, beyond the mind. You're not thinkable. All right, what verse are we on tonight?
217.
So now we're entering into meditation verses. They come in two flavors. First are the negation verses. The self is not this. It is not this. And then the self is. Now, these assertive verses do not define. At best, they point. How do we use them? Both kinds. Tune up the mind, meditate a bit, maybe chant your mantra. And then you pick up the scripture and take one of these ideas at a time. And then with the mind made very still, the attentive faculty turned inward, see whether or not it is in fact true about you. Then it moves from what we call paroksha jnanam, indirect knowledge, to aparoksha jnana, direct experience. All right, will you help us out, please, Puneet?
What verse was it?
What verse was it, Mark?
217.
217.
Jagat swapna sushuptishu sputataram yosav samujja jambhate pratyagrupa taya sadahama aham ityantaha spurannekadha nanakara vikara bhagin na iman pashyan aham dhimukhan Nityananda Chidatmana Spuratiram Tam Vidhi Swametam Hridayi. That which clearly manifests itself in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states, that which is perceived inwardly in various forms by the mind as a series of unknown impressions of the ego, which witnesses the ego, the intellect, etc., which are of different forms and modifications, which is felt as existence, knowledge, bliss absolute. Know this, Atman, within your heart as your own self.
Yes. Very rich shloka. So let's parse it. How are we going to use this? First idea.
That which clearly manifests itself in the waking, dream, and deep sleep state.
So right now, most of us hopefully are in the waking state. Who knows it? Who had a dream last night or this past week? Who knew the dream? I did. Who slept well last night? When you woke up in the morning, you had the thought, oh, I must have slept so soundly. I don't remember a thing. You were there to witness it. Waking, dream, deep sleep. And any whacked out meditative states or drug states or anything like that, you just lump those into the dream. I am ever beyond the play of the mind, waking, dream, deep sleep. I watch the mind move. So, for example, some of you have gone on meditation retreats. You went on one recently. Did your mind get quiet at one point?
Yes,
Okay. Who knew it?
I did.
Did it pass?
Oh, yes.
Your mind no longer quiet?
No,
Who
not
knows,
as quiet.
who knows the not quiet mind?
I know.
Have you disappeared?
No.
You're always there. So Wendy was here on, what day was that? Wednesday?
Wednesday, yeah.
A lot of the world just fell away.
Yeah.
But did you disappear?
No.
Did it come back a bit?
Yes.
Did you disappear when it came back?
No.
A nice one.
Mm-hmm.
A mind state that begins to reveal the truth. But the mind state itself is not the truth. You. Next idea.
That which is perceived inwardly in various forms by the mind as a series of unknown impressions of the ego.
Yes. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm successful, I'm stressed, I'm peaceful. I am fill in the blank. So we have something that's very real. Yourself is the substratum of the ego sense. I. But then the mind adds a qualifier. And if I really am quiet, the qualifier doesn't mean myself goes through these changes. So who here got stressed this week? Your mind says, oh, I'm so stressed out. But were you not aware of the stress?
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't you that was stressed. It was your mind or your body. Who here had just some real peaceful and blissful moments this week? Oh, please, some of you.
I did.
Who knew it?
I did.
You weren't peaceful. It was the mind that was peaceful. Do you see that?
Yes.
You are ever the witness. And here's a secret. In the beginning, we say, take on Sakshi Bhava. Take on the attitude or the feeling of the witness. Get out, watch your mind, watch your mind, watch your mind. Well, we fooled you. You cannot take on the attitude of the witness because you really always are the witness. You just begin to notice that you're the witness. You're always watching your mind. but the mind itself may not be aware of that. So, was there a question over here? No. What egoism is a real experience. Plus these adjuncts, which makes it seem like I go up and down, but I don't. Next idea.
Why does he say it's a series of unknown impressions of the ego?
Because we don't examine them.
Yes.
We don't think about it. So like what I normally is, oh God, I'm so stressed. It takes a subtle mind to stand back and say, oh, wait a minute, no, I is not stressed. The mind is stressed. Then it becomes a known impression. That's how I read the text. Anybody else have another way to interpret it?
Yeah, like in the moment, it's hard to step back because it's
Yes.
like a big cloud on your head.
Yes. That's avidya. That's spiritual ignorance. Next one.
Which witnesses the ego, the intellect, etc.
Yeah. So the subtlest of all discrimination is to be able to discern the difference between the self and the idea of self. Which is why I give you the mantra, the slogan, the maxim. If I feel like a person, I'm deluded. If I feel like an individual, then I'm identified. Anybody get identified this week? Yes, no?
Yes.
Anybody have moments where you dropped the identification and remembered who you were?
Yeah.
Then you saw your ego come and go. How can you be the ego when you watch it appear and disappear? Do you see that?
Yeah.
You see the phone in my hand?
Mhm.
You see there's no phone in my hand?
Mhm.
I was identified. No, I'm not identified. You see what I'm getting at? You witness the ego, and you can thicken it and thin it. You get up in front of people and do a presentation. Somebody trashes your food. You get engrossed in a project, make music, do meditation. It thins out. Watch it. It's not you. It's the most difficult discrimination. To discriminate between the real self and the chit chaya, the shadow self. Chid abhasa is the word we've been using in Panchadashi, the reflection of consciousness. Next verse, or not verse, next idea.
Which are of different forms and modifications.
Yes. So the mind is always changing. These ideas of self are always changing. And the most painful attitude of the mind, I call it the shit fairy. It sits on my shoulder. How am I doing? Am I okay? What do they think of me? So painful. But this false self, great, great metaphor for it, is like the flame of a candle or a lamp. So when you see the flame of a candle in a room with no fan or anything like that, the flame is very still. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It looks like a thing. Photograph it, looks like a thing. But a flame is not a thing. A flame is event. It's movement. It's the constant oxidization of the gases. It's always in motion. The false self is like that flame. It's always in motion. This is why you have questions like this. Wendy, are you really happy? Stupidest question in the world. Happy, and now I'm bored, and my nose itches, and I'm thinking about having to do the dishes, and what I'm going to make for my sister next week, and my butt itches, and then, gee, that was a neat movie last night. Isn't that what my mind does? What are you really like? Stupid question. Because you are not a thing. You are not an entity. The ego is an event. Now listen carefully. Who has heard the word nirvana used by the Buddhists? Some Buddhists think it's a place you go to. I'm going to get enlightenment, go to nirvana. But we have a Sanskritist. What does the word literally mean?
I guess it's the like vana is like air, so like it's without. Yes, with respect to the flame, it's like there's no flame anymore.
Yes, it means blown out, is how I've always heard it. So we take that ego flame, and the fuel is the sense perceptions and the desires and stuff like that. Constantly keeps that flame going. What does knowledge of the self do? Where did that little self go? I don't know. Kate param, kate parasam, kate buddhiswaha. Gone. Gone. Completely gone. Completely gone beyond. Awake. Next idea.
Which is felt as existent knowledge, bliss absolute.
Are you you? Do you exist? Descartes says, I think, therefore I am. I wonder if he thought he'd disappear if he quit thinking. He may have meant I'm not a Cartesian. I'm ready. The fact that I know my thoughts means somebody has to know them. Maybe he meant that. But stop your thinking and see if you disappear. You are sat. You always exist under all circumstances. You are never a sat, non-existent. Chit, you are sentient. You are conscious. You do not have awareness the way you have a hand or a foot. You are awareness. Bliss absolute, fountainhead of all joy. The mind merges into the sound. It becomes this. Talking with a fellow this morning. And I know him from my old church job. He was talking about, his father who's 95, and all his father's friends are dead. And my friend was saying, connection, that's what it's about. That's where we find God, is in connection and relationship. Well, I'm not so sure. One of the ways to look at the cross, there's a vertical part of it, as well as a horizontal part. What is the purpose of the human experience? Why are we here? What is our dharma? God consciousness. All that implies. Once you're God conscious, then perhaps reach out and touch someone. Whatever you will find in community reaching out will be temporary and finite. Oh, if only I joined a monastery and I'd finally find connection. How'd that work, Mike?
Not very well at all. Not very well at all. Just the opposite.
Oh, if I get married, then I'll have connection. Maybe. I was talking with a guy at the symphony. He was on his third spouse. And then they die. All relationships end in death and divorce. Wrong. Moksha, union with the infinite, is forever. Next idea.
Know this Atman within your heart as your own self.
So the heart here, we don't mean a geographic location, not the heart chakra, not the physical heart. The heart, the Hridaya, in Vedanta, has a specific meaning. It's when the intellect, when the flow of thought has been reduced to a minimum, and all the struggling and the craving, the jonesing in my mind has come to a stop. Then they merge. In that stillness, in that silence, that peace, the attention turned within. Who are you? Incredibly rich shloka. Any thoughts on it before we move on? Next one.
घटो देकं बिम्बितमर्कबिम्ब मालोक्य मूढो रमिमेव मन्यते तथा चिदाभास तथा चिदाभासम् उपाधि संस्थतं भ्रयन्त्या हमित्येव जडोऽभिमन्यते. The fool, on seeing the reflection of the sun in the water in a jar, considers it to be the sun itself. So too, the fool, through delusion, identifies himself with the reflection of the chit caught in the intellect and considers it to be the I, his own identity.
So this is one of Shankara's most famous images. And to expand it a bit, if there's half a dozen jars all lined up, you on a sunny day, you look and you say, my God, there's 6 suns. You're not looking up, you're looking at the jar. And then if someone goes, boing, on the water, ah, he broke the sun. Did the status of the water affect the sun at all? It is Surya Bimba. A reflection of the sun. Surya Chaya. In the subtle intellect is this Chittabhasa, this reflection of consciousness, caught in the subtle intellect. I am Jim. Now, mind you, this is not evil. You couldn't function in the world without it. I got up this morning. I made my bed. I did the dishes. I hung out with my friend Walt. I went to the symphony. I ate leftover Wendy food. I washed her little dishes for her. Did the self do that? No. Philosophically, I go nowhere. I do nothing. It was the body-mind intellect that did that. But in the subtle intellect, there's a karta, a function, an agent that coordinates the activity. It is not evil. It's just not you. Do you understand that? A woman of knowledge can continue to function quite well in the world. She might be a little spacey. So the jnani, the person of wisdom, does not confuse a real self with this chit chaya, this chit abhasa, this reflected self caught in the web of thought. Even when it thins out, you're totally engrossed in something, no sense of an individual. But after the fact, you say, oh man, was that fun? That's such a good time doing that. It's not a problem. If you know who you are, just like no one's ever seen a sunset. All of us know you've seen an earth spin, but nobody talks like that. It's not necessary. You don't have to correct other people. All right, next verse.
Ghatam jalam tagat tamarkabimbam vihaya sarvam vinirikshate kaha tatastha etatri taya vabhasaka swayam prakasho vidusha yatha tatha. The intelligent person leaves aside the jar, the water, and the reflection of the sun in it, and sees the self-luminous sun. So too, the wise realize the self-luminous reality which illumines these three and recognize it as independent of them all.
So the jar is like the body. The water in the jar is like the subtle body. The reflected sun in the water is like ahankriti, ego sense. So the intelligent person, they can see the reflection in the jar, but they know, oh, that's the sun. Likewise, the intelligent person knows, I'm not the body, I'm not the subtle body, I'm not the karta, the agent, I'm chidakasha, I'm chidabhasa. Space of pure awareness, the reflection of consciousness. So many of you heard me tell the story about someone comes up to Swamiji and says, Swamiji, when are you coming to Allahabad? I don't know. Allahabad passes in front. And then when he asked me to take sannyas, he said, meet me in Bangalore on Shivratri and we'll do the ceremony then. Now make up your mind, Swamiji. First one, he was speaking philosophically as a teaching. When he was discussing with me, it was Vyavahara, transaction. Yeah, show up in Bangalore on Shivratri. He did not forget himself because he was speaking transaction. Do you see that? Now, there are schools of Buddhists who will say, this one is going to the store. This one is taking the car out today. It just becomes their way of speaking. Is there some value in it? I think maybe there is. Or is it just talking funny? You don't need to talk funny. All right, any questions about this?
I have a kind of a question. Sometimes, like today, after sitting, when you started Om, it was like things were happening here. There was noise and movement, but there was like nobody there.
Uh-huh.
But there wasn't nothing. But it almost seems like there's no witnessing. It's like, I don't know.
But you heard it.
Yeah.
The Om did not cease to be heard.
No. Ah, okay.
But there was no thought, oh, Jim's oming, that's really cool. My mind's very quiet. That chatter was gone. That makes sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is Ganesh hoping right now?
I don't know.
You don't know. Yeah. Quod erat demonstratum. Good question. Good question. Next verse.
So the next verse is like 3 verses. So should I read them all together?
Absolutely.
Teham dhiyam chit pratibimbavevam visrijya buddhau nihitam guhayam दृष्टारमात्मानमखण्ड बोधम सर्व प्रकाशम सदसद्धि लक्षणम नित्यं विभुं सर्ग गतं सुषुक्म मंतर बहिशून्य अनन्यमात्मनः विज्ञाय सम्यक् निजरूपमेतत् पुमान् विपाप्ना विरज्जो विमृत्युः विशोक आनंद घनो विपिष्यत् स्वयं स्वयं कुतश्चिन्न विभेति कश्चित् नान्योऽस्ति पन्था भवबन्धमुक्तेर् विना स्वतत्त्वावगमं मुमुक्षोः. So too, leaving aside the body, the intellect and the reflection of Chit in it, and realizing in the cave of the intellect the witness, the self, which is knowledge absolute, which is the cause of everything, which is distinct from the gross and the subtle, which is eternal and omnipresent, all pervading and supremely subtle, which is without exterior or interior, which is the one self. By fully realizing this, one becomes free from sin, blemish, death, and grief, and becomes the ocean of bliss. Being illumined, he is not afraid of anyone. For him who seeks liberation, there is no other path to break away from the bonds of transmigration than realizing the truth of his own self.
So let's again break it down. So the first idea,
Leaving aside the body, the intellect, and the reflection of Chit in it, and realizing in the cave of the intellect, the witness, the self.
yes. Okay, so constantly discriminating. I'm not the body, I'm not the feelings, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not the feeling, I'm a person. Under the witnessing consciousness. This is where Ramana Maharshi's great practice, Koham, who am I? Do you hear the traffic? To whom did it occur? To me. Koham, who am I? Oh, I got so upset today. To whom did that feeling occur? To me. Who am I? Drop it, drop it. We're all the way back to Viveka and Vairagya again. Discriminate, don't drop it. Next idea.
Which is knowledge absolute, which is the cause of everything.
So, out of the self, because of its Maya Shakti, the whole universe appears. This is why I just drum into our heads the slogan. It's a spiritual axiom that if I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha. Klesha means affliction. I'm the one with the dosha. I'm the one with the defect. This doesn't mean they're right and I'm wrong. But if I'm reacting, it's never caused out there. Never, ever, ever, ever. I'm the one who's triggered. I'm the one with the attachment or the identification. Always. Once I can take responsibility for that, then I have a chance at some peace. How successful have you been in fixing or changing other people? I've never had much success at it, but I can let go. Let it go. Remember who you are. I need nothing. I am the source of everything. All okay. Then do as you will. But do as you will from an intuitive place, not a needy place. Not a reactive place. Next idea.
which is distinct from the gross and the subtle.
I am not the physical body. I am not my thoughts and feelings or the heart-beat sense of agency. Next idea.
Which is eternal and omnipresent, all-pervading and supremely subtle.
Yes, which is eternal. Nityam, eternal is different than Sanatanam or Puranam. Puranam and Sanatanam mean ancient, really old. Self is that too. But eternal means outside of time and space. The self is always now. So remember what you did yesterday. That memory is in the now. Sense, yesterday doesn't even exist. All that exists is now. And then the next moment of now. You are now always. Next idea. Well, we said eternal. What was the next idea after that?
All-pervading and supremely subtle.
All pervading. No matter what's happening, gross or subtle, if I'm aware of it, it means I'm there. I have a headache. I'm pervading the headache. If I hear the traffic, I'm pervading that. I have a deep spiritual insight. I'm pervading that. And in fact, the self is the place wherein the whole cosmos takes place. It's everywhere. Next idea.
Which is without exterior or interior.
Yes. So just like it feels like I'm inside the dream. In fact, the dream is in me. So the self, Brahman, is the context for the entire creation. But it pervades the entire creation. And you and I experience it as aham. I. It's inside, it's outside, it's above, it's below, it's gross, it's subtle. It's everywhere. Next idea.
Which is the one self.
You got it. Next idea. The next verse.
By fully realizing this, one becomes free from sin, blemish, death, and grief.
So, does this mean I become a goody-goody? So, if I go to lunch and I spill my lunch on my shirt, I am not soiled. My shirt is soiled. Likewise. First of all, don't be a jerk, just out of compassion for the rest of us. But if you do bad behavior, hurt or harm someone. It never touches. Now listen carefully. One of the first real signs that you're letting go of the false, phony self is our willingness to admit when we've screwed up. If you have a hard time admitting when you've screwed up, why? Because I have a need to protect, defend, or secure that phony self. Do you see that?
Mhm.
This is why I tell people, don't try to be spiritual. Strive for authenticity. Be truthful. At whatever level you can let that in. This is not about superimposing goodiness on top of our ulcerated, vicious minds. Doesn't work. Next idea.
Becomes the ocean of bliss.
So because the self is bliss absolute, there is no end to how deeply the mind can be absorbed and revel in the self. It's an endless ocean of bliss. So I'll have students get tuned up a little bit. I think I'm getting it unto them, like it's a light switch on or off. I would say, oh, kids, there's so much deeper. Then if we're lucky, we have the punya, we get the opportunity to meet a great Mahatma, like a Swamiji, like an Anandamayi Ma, like this dude that my friend Dave Dutzguru, Bhuvaneshwara had. Oh, there. Man. And they can show us what the human mind is capable of. Inspire. And ocean. Do they know more self than someone else? You either see it or you don't. But how deeply the mind can revel in the self. Next idea.
Being illumined, she is not afraid of anything.
So, knowledge of the self gives us two things. First, it frees us from existential fear. Nothing's going to harm you. It's safe. Bankruptcy is safe. War is safe. Death itself is safe. Nothing touches you. And you also find out, oh, now I know where happiness is. It's me. Oh, so simple. Next idea.
For her who seeks liberation, there is no other path to break away from the bonds of transmigration than realizing the truth of their own self.
So, what is it that will free me? Not thousands of repetitions of a mantra, not thousands of pujas, not thousands of sacred baths, not thousands of repetitions of the rosary, not going to communion hundreds of thousands of times. All these serve to quieten the mind, to purify people. I like to say there's a mountain of truth, and there are many paths up the mountain of truth. But there's one temple at the top of the mountain, the temple of truth. And it only has one door, and that is aham. If you want freedom, moksha, enlightenment, self-realization, the prayer of mystic union goes by many, many names. Find out who I am. So Moses goes up onto the mountain, and God's talking to him out of the burning bush. He tells him to take off his sandals, because the place whereon you stand is holy ground. It wasn't holy because God was there in the bush. The place where you stand is holy ground, because you, as an incarnation of God, are there. Now, in ancient times, many ancient cultures thought if I can find the name of the God, I can control the God through ritual. So Moses said, who shall I say sent me? What's your name, dude? And God said, tell them I am has sent me. Not Ein's dog food. It's not a name. It is a name if you think of name as nature. Find out who I am is, and you will find out. This is why at the moment of realization, as expressed in our four great Mahavakyas, it says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Not I know, not I've talked to Brahman. This is moksha. This is free. very clearly articulate here. All right, next verse. Have we finished all the verses? Those three?
Yes.
Okay.
ब्रह्मा भिन्नत्वविज्ञानं भवमोक्षस्य कारणं येनाद्वितीय आनन्दं ब्रह्मा सम्पद्यते बुधैः. The cause for liberation from transmigration is the realization of one's identity with Brahman. By means of this, wise men attain Brahman, the one without a second, the bliss absolute.
So, the example I like to give, the experience of being an ego, the experience of transmigration, being born, we can take it in one lifetime, going through changes, is like being hypnotized. So I tell the story of the two gals who go to Las Vegas. There's this show in one of the casinos, a stage hypnotist. Gals have got tickets, they're sitting in the front row. Hypnotist says, well, I need a subject to demonstrate hypnotism. Finally, the goes up. Stage hypnotist says, have you ever been hypnotized? No. Do you think you can be? I don't think so. Well, will you go through the process? Okay. So he sits her in a chair, hypnotizes her. And he leaves her with a post-hypnotic suggestion. When I say the word wonderful, you will think you are a chicken. Well, let's do it a different way. Yeah, chicken's fine. Chicken. You will think you're a chicken. And when I clap my hands, you will be out of the hypnotic suggestion. You will not remember that I've told you this. So I'm going to count to 3, and you will come out of this trance and not remember what we've said. So it goes 1, 2, 3. She opens her eyes. The hypnotist says, how do you feel? Oh, fine. Do you think you were hypnotized? No, heard every word you said. Well, many people feel very relaxed, at least, and some people feel quite wonderful. All of a sudden, she gets up out of the chair, starts running around the stage, going, wah, 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 wah. Everybody starts to laugh at her. And so upset. And finally, the stage hypnotist goes, she stops. Whoa. That was so weird. I was sure I was a chicken. Now, was she ever a chicken? No. But she sure believed she was. So is our experience of Jiva Bhavana, this attitude, this feeling that I'm a person. It's not just thoughts going by. That's not strong enough. It's like hypnotism. It's like a dream. And it seems so real. Wake up. where did her chicken go? She saw that she never was a chicken. So at the moment of realization, it's not, oh, I, Jim, am no longer going to have to be born again. I am now a liberated person. I won't have to reincarnate. No. You see, oh, I am a jati. I was never born in the first place. It was just a very long and very vivid dream. Don't believe me. Okay, we'll stop here for tonight. What verse are we on for next week?
224.
224. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.